Hello there and welcome to another Hero Arts video. It's Michelle Short here, and today I have a Happy New Year card to share with you using foiling on vellum. So let's get started. This is the beautiful Twinkling Stars hot foil plate. Works perfectly for lots of different occasions, but today I thought I would create a New Year card. I'm going to foil that onto some classic vellum layering paper. I have cut the vellum quite a bit larger than I actually need, but you'll see why a little bit later. So I'm just cutting the champagne hot foil that I'm going to foil the plate with, just cutting that down to size with some scissors, and then I can pop the plate on top. I have got a little bit of excess foil at the bottom there as well, so I can just cut that down. And those pieces of foil work perfectly for sentiments, so I'm going to keep those. When I'm hot foiling, I do like to hold everything down, kind of like a sandwich, as if I would do if I was die cutting. So I like to grab some low tack tape and hold everything down. This is going to make sure that nothing shifts while I run it through my die cutting machine. So the paper, the foil and the foil plate are all nicely stuck together. So I can just grab the last piece here and pop that down. I'm then going to take everything to my Glimmer hot foil system. I can flip over that sandwich and make sure that the foil plate is against the platform. So that's what's going to heat up. I can then press the timer button on the system, and once it's blinking it means that it's heating up, and once it goes solid green it means that it's finished heating up. So I'm going to remove the platform from the base, but I found that when I was doing some experiments with vellum that I did need to heat up the platform twice. So what I'm doing here is I kind of removed it from the platform so it kind of reset itself, popped it back in, waited for the light to go back green to say that the platform was heated up, and pressed the timer button again. So I feel like it needed the 2 cycles of the heat just to make sure that I got a really nice impression with the foil on the vellum. So now it's gone solid again, I can remove the platform from the base, and then I can bring in my shims. I did find that I needed some extra pressure when I was foiling on the vellum. Because the vellum is thinner than cardstock, I felt that I needed that extra shim. So I've got 2 layers of printer paper, and then I've got the 2 shims that come with the system as well. Then I can run that through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and that's going to add the pressure to foil nicely on the vellum. The downside of using the sandwich method, sticking everything down like I have, is that the plate is really quite hot at this point. So I'm trying to be really careful here and not touch the plate as I'm removing this tape. I didn't really need as much tape as I actually put on, but because it's such a big foil plate, I wanted to make sure that it didn't shift or anything like that. So just carefully removing that tape, and I can actually use the tape here kind of like a handle to lift off the plate and the foil. So I've got that really pretty Twinkling Stars foiled onto vellum. And although this vellum is quite opaque, you can still see through it, and I think it gives a softer look than it would do if you were to foil on cardstock. So now I can work on my card base. So I've got an A2 size white card base here. So this is a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. I'm taking the largest die from the Diamonds Infinity die set. I can pop that in the center of the card. I can hold it down with some low tack tape, but I just want to hold it down just on one side to start with. I can then grab my T-square ruler and I can make sure that the points of the diamond are going to be lined up. Once I'm happy that it's straight, I can pop another piece of low tack tape down. I can open up that card base, and then I can run that through my die cutting machine. So I can just pop that diamond out, and then I can remove that die carefully. And now I've got a window so that I can add my vellum behind. I do want to make sure that I don't have any adhesive showing on the inside of the card. So I've taken a panel of white cardstock, just slightly smaller than the card size. So it's just kind of about 1/4 of an inch on either side. And I've die cut the diamond from it as well. So I'm going to use that to add that onto the inside of the card. I can now grab my vellum piece, and although I can see through it because it is vellum, I'm just going to lift that up so that I can make sure that the stars are arranged nicely on the front on that kind of window piece. And that's the benefit of having a larger piece of vellum than I actually need, so I can kind of wiggle it in place. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to grab a pencil and I'm just going to draw some lines so that I know where I need to cut this panel down. So I'm just going to do one on either point of the diamond, and then I'm also just going to go around the side pieces as well, just so that I can cut this down a little bit further. So I'm going to take that to my guillotine and then I can cut that into a rectangle. And then I am just going to grab some scissors just to cut off those corners. I don't really need to, but I thought that it would just neaten it up a little bit and make sure that I don't add too much bulk to this card. I'm just going to erase those pencil lines. Again, I don't really need to do this because it's going to get covered up, but I like to just make things as neat as possible. I'm then going to grab some tape runner adhesive and I'm going to run that around the outside edges of this diamond shape. I prefer to use dry adhesive when I'm adhering vellum. I do find that sometimes if you use wet adhesive, it does tend to warp a little bit. So I can just pop that in place. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I can really press that down. So just moving it if I need to. And then I can press that down. I'm then going to add adhesive onto the back of this panel piece. And then I can adhere that to the inside of the card. So just trying to line it up as best as possible. I'm not pressing down at this point. I'm going to flip the card over and make sure that it looks pretty from the front as well. So I think that's lined up quite nicely, so I can really press that down. And now I've got my window created with the vellum. I'm then taking the numbers fancy dies, so this is the number 2, the number 4 and the number 0, and I'm going to cut those from some glitter paper. So this is gold glitter paper from the Holiday Sparkle set. I'm adding some double-sided adhesive sheet onto the back of that, and then I can die cut the numbers. So just placing those on top, and I can hold them down with some low tack tape. The low tack tape doesn't actually hold the dies to the glitter paper because nothing really sticks to glitter paper, but it does just keep them in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. So I can use these numbers to create the year for my card. So I've run that through my die cutting machine. I can remove that tape and then I can pop out these numbers. The double-sided sheet does have a backing to it, and sometimes that doesn't cut perfectly, but the actual numbers have cut really nicely. So I can just remove all of those from the outside pieces, and then I have cut the numbers again twice from some Deluxe smooth white cardstock. I'm going to use the other one so that I can stack them on top of each other to create some dimension. So I can just peel off that backing off of the double-sided adhesive, and now I've kind of got stickers, which is really helpful, so that I can just adhere them one on top of each other, and it's going to be really quite easy to do so. I could definitely do this with liquid glue, but I knew that I wanted the bottom layer to be this adhesive sheet, and you'll see why a little bit later. So in the end, it was just easier for me to cut them all from the adhesive sheet. So I can remove the backing off of this glitter one here, and then I can pop that on top. So they're going to be 3 layers high. And the great thing about this adhesive sheet is that if you place it down, as long as you haven't pressed down really well, you can kind of lift it off and move it around if you need to. So now I've got my numbers here. I can place them down onto my card base, trying to sort of line them up so that they're centered into the diamond and then also on the card base as well. So once I'm fairly happy with that arrangement, I can remove the backing off of the number 4 here. And I don't know why I'm starting with this number, but for some reason I decided to. So I'm just popping that down with some tweezers. And I'm not pressing down at this point because I might need to move it. I'm bringing in my T-square ruler so that I can see where I want the 2 to be placed next to it. And I found that I didn't quite get them centered, so I want to move that 4 a little bit further over towards the right hand side so that the gap between the end of the 4 and the side of the card base is the same for the 2. And then I can do the same thing here for the 0 above the 4. And then again I can move that T-square ruler up a little bit. And then I can place the 2 down as well. And then I can move anything that I need to, but once I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to grab some scrap paper. This is actually the shim that I used when I was doing the foiling, and then also my bone folder here, and I can really press those down. So now they're really well stuck down onto the card base, and when I open the card you can't see the adhesive on the back of the numbers because the adhesive covers the whole of the number, so it doesn't read as adhesive, whereas if you were to use liquid glue or something like that you would actually see that. So that is the benefit of using that double-sided adhesive sheet. I've then stamped and heat embossed a sentiment from the Hero Greetings Merry Christmas stamp set. And I just thought I would use the Happy New Year. Obviously it makes sense with the numbers. And I'm going to adhere that down with some black foam tape. I just need a small amount on the right hand side and also the left hand side because it does overlap that 4, and that 4 is dimensional, so I'm just adding the foam tape on either side just to make it level. I can remove the backing off of that foam tape, just add a little bit of extra tape adhesive there in the middle, and then I can pop that down over the 4. And then I'm just going to open the card here. You can see the foam tape a little bit, but because it's black it doesn't really show up too well. I think a fellow crafter would probably notice it, but I don't think anyone else would notice it. But I really love that window with the vellum. I think it looks really pretty with the foiling on top. And I thought I would just show you how I would write a personal greeting inside of the card. I would grab some paper. In this instance I've got some gold paper, and I would write my personal message inside, and then the piece on top would kind of cover it so you wouldn't see your writing through that vellum window. I've got gold here, but white would look really nice as well. Any colour would obviously show through that window. But I just think it's really pretty. You could definitely write a sentiment on the back if you wanted to as well. But I just love how you can see through that window and you've got all that lovely sparkle and shine. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and over on the Hero Arts blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.